The availability management process. So there are a couple things that we talked about in regards to metrics. Metrics should be monitored, and you can't manage what you don't measure. So there are a number of metrics that we talked about. Some of the reactive activities include monitoring, measuring, analyzing report data, having service reviews, um, and measuring component availability, investigating all of those availabilities and all of those reports, and instigate remedial action. So those are all reactive activities. But there are quite a few proactive activities that we can do in regards to availability management. In the proactive activities box here, we see that risk assessment and management can be a proactive activity in terms of availability management. So if we know that a service component is failing or is faulty, or the vendor is about to terminate use of all of the system components because it's an old version, or our service provider is upgrading to a new system or to a new another service provider, then those are the types of things that we can proactively talk about and try to get ahead of, instead of us ignoring them or not talking about them. And then when we go to use a service, it doesn't work because our technologies are incompatible, or the two no longer exist, or our system is, outdated. We can also implement costs for justifiable countermeasures. So if there's some things that we need to do to upgrade or to add new features, we can do those things proactively. Plan and design for new and changed services, and review all new and changed services and test all availability and resilience mechanisms. So instead of waiting for an incident to occur, we can go ahead and test our service components and our systems routinely to make sure that they are going to meet our availability expectations. So all of this information will go into AMIS. It includes availability management reports. I mentioned that. The availability plan, availability design criteria, and availability testing schedule. So essentially, any information or data that's collected in support of availability management will go into that repository. We may have talked about most of this, but activities involving availability management ensure that all existing services deliver the levels of availability agreed upon in the SLAs. Obviously, ensure that all new services are designed to deliver the levels of availability required by the business. So once again, we're not just focusing on what IT thinks is good or what's good enough. We're going to go back to the business and make sure that everything that we have enabled is according to a business requirement, which is most of the time closely aligned with a customer requirement. Assist with the investigation and diagnosis of all availability-related incidents and problems. We talked about that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in incident management. And participating in the IT infrastructure design. And why is availability management participating in the IT infrastructure design?
Question for me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Why is availability management part of the design?
Participating in the IT infrastructure design.
I feel like it's all there.
Yep.
Let's see. Well, if your part of your design and part of your SLAs indicate that you're going to have your service available for X amount of time, and your system doesn't meet those SLAs, that can be an issue. That would be a compliance.
Yeah,
it would
that
be a
would,
compliance concern. It wouldn't be or it wouldn't be effective.
yes. Yes, that's absolutely right. Availability management would need to participate in any design activities so that they can provide their perspective on how the service should behave and how long it should be available and when. And so they could also provide input on everything that's documented within the availability management repository to say, hey, here's how this system has behaved in the past. We can expect it to behave the same way moving forward. So yes, exactly. Let's see. We're going to take a short break in a moment. Let's try to get through information security, and then we'll take a short break. Okay, information security management. Information security management is mostly concerned with protecting your data and your information. Short and sweet. The ISM process should cover use and misuse of all IT systems and services for all IT security issues. The goal or goals, one is to align IT security with business security and ensure that information security is effectively managed in all service and service management activities. So once again, we're aligning IT with the business. We're aligning IT security with business security. We can't have IT security saying, oh, we have to have security clearances for all employees, and the business is saying, no, we don't need security clearances for all employees. We just need to do a background check. So IT security requirements and business security requirements need to be in alignment. The second goal is that ISM must ensure that an information security policy is produced, maintained, and enforced. So that is the major output of information security management, is your security policy. ISM objectives: to prevent unauthorized access.
Yep.
That's it. If you're not supposed to be here, we don't want you here. And on the other side of the coin, if you are supposed to be here, welcome. We want to make sure that you have authorized access. So that's probably the major objective of ISM. Second, provide effective security measures at strategic, tactical, and operational levels for an organization. To enable organization to do business, quote unquote, safely, which is reflective of the first bullet. And lastly, to comply with security requirements as per an SLA. So if you have an SLA that's written and there are considerations for certain levels of security, then ISM, of course, would write their security requirements to comply with what's noted in the SLA. Also remember, we're all also still in design, so no one has done anything. We're still just designing what our service looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Key components of ISM involve protection of CIA. That's what I call CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And of course, non-repudiation. The major output from information security policy, the major output from ISM is your information security policy. If you're interested, there's an ISO standard that supports information security. It's called ISO 27001. And it gives you the organization's directives for what they specifically need to do to be ISO certified in regards to information security. It's pretty thorough.
Yeah, I actually looked at pursuing that when I'm the privacy point of contact for GDPR.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I looked into it, but we didn't do it.
Okay.
But that is familiar to me.
Oh yeah. And the ISO certifications can be pretty costly. So,
Yeah. Well, that was
yeah.
one of the big deterrents. I want to say it was something like $5,000.
Mhm. Mhm. And that there's security analysis and controls established. So key concepts of ISM. Confidentiality. So here are some definitions. Information is accessible to only those who who are authorized to view it. Integrity. Information, especially while being communicated, is protected against unauthorized modification. So if I send you an SLA document, you shouldn't be able to go in and make changes to it and send it back to me signed. And I'm none the wiser. And I say, okay, great, they signed it. There
Yep.
should be some type of there should be some type of protection on that document, either via PDF or some type of encrypted password or something that protects the information as it's presented, so you're not able to modify it. Availability, which we talked about, information is invulnerable to attacks or is recoverable in secure way, i.e. it is available when it should be. So by definition, that is what availability means. It's there when you need it, but of course only to people who are authorized to have it. And then non-repudiation, senders of information could not deny that information has not been sent by him or her. So for instance, if we're doing a bank transaction or a wire transaction, there should be some way to show I sent Allison $10,000 as a form of payment, and here's a tracking receipt to that. And Allison will look at it and say, oh, okay, I know exactly where this money came from. It was deposited into the right account, etc. So you can't just say, "Oh, I got $10,000. I didn't know where it came from, and I spent it. Who knows?" So non-repudiation. Other key concepts of ISM. The major output, of course, is information security policy. It's a policy that is set by an organization which ensures the compliance to information security objectives and specific security policies. So information security policy could provide directives on how to discard of personnel records that have sensitive information such as social security numbers and addresses. Your policy could say that you shred them within, the same business day of not needing them, or you make sure that you use a encrypted drive to back up all of your data, and it has a password. So the information security policy gives clear directive on how to protect all the information that needs to be protected and make sure that unauthorized users are not able to get that information. Second, security analysis and controls to analyze the threats of organizations' data and information and to eliminate, minimize the same. So when you have insecurity incidents, you analyze them to see, okay, why did this happen? Why were we close to a catastrophe? How did this person even get to inside of our portal? So you analyze the threats. And you provide security controls at various levels so you can reduce the impact of security breaches. Appropriate authorization from people from the business, and rightfully so. Communicating and publicizing the information security policy to all the appropriate parties. So we are developing this policy. We've gotten the correct approvals, and we are also communicating that policy across the organization. Ensuring the information security policy is enforced and adhered to, and identifying and classifying IT and information assets, and the level of control and protection required. So this also goes back to our discussion about the pipeline and how a lot of that information in the pipeline is sensitive, and not everyone's going to have access to it. So this will be a prime example of that.